This is from Colorado when I was speaking in Littleton. And what is interesting is you have this vision of world, global, economic, and environmental interdependence and their mission for lifelong learning. Gee, I wonder where they get these words. You know, it kind of sounds familiar, you know. I don't know. If we put up Georgia back up there, it might sound a little bit the same. You have your learner outcome categories, you know, physical and emotional health. Gee, yours said physical and mental health. Reasoning, it said the same thing for those. I mean, it's just really incredible. Here are your content areas. Here are your content areas, except yours were down here across the top. But what does it say? We have to teach the whole child, the whole learner, the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Gee, I love to find things that I'm going to talk about. It's so much fun. Now, these are some of the actual definitions that will help you to understand. Outcomes, the observable and measurable results of a process or event. The outcome categories, these are the domains of learning. This is your vision and your mission. Remember, it's not content, it is the vision. Learner outcomes are the observable, measurable knowledge, attitudes, and skills a learner will acquire and can demonstrate. Gee, that sounds familiar from the new generation schools. Exit outcomes, the observable and measurable outcomes necessary at the point of graduation. Who controls the graduation requirement? The state. Understand that it's the state coming to Johnny. That's why we need outcome-based systems, so that they can focus on and access individual children. An assessment to the process by which students will know, believe, and can do is measured. You must have a demonstration, and we must have levels of proficiency. Well, gee, I keep talking about human capital. Where did this all come from? It came from the SCANS report, which is called Learning a Living, a Blueprint of Performance for the America 2000, which is the Secretary's Commission on Achieving Necessary Skills from the Department of Labor. Understand that this was established under President Bush, that Dan Quayle and Elizabeth Dole were both on the SCANS board to implement these outcomes. Can I write the big word Republican with a question mark at the end? I think we can. I mean, Charlotte talks about William Bennett and some of the things that he had funded under the Effective School, but guess what I have? I have William Bennett implementing and putting in place the data bank. I have William Bennett, who had on his board Lamar Alexander and Hillary Clinton to implement the national data system to control the TQM process. Together, we're dynamite. Charlotte comes from the top down, and I come from the bottom up, and we hit head on in the middle. But knowledge is power. You will not be able to make the decisions that we need for the future unless you have the information. So what does the SCANS say? There's a hypothetical resume. You should all get the SCANS books. This is poor Jane Smith. This is the hypothetical electronic portfolio that we will be moving to in Georgia very quickly, because all the neat technology that you have in Georgia with all those big companies that are here that just love technology. And I love technology. Look what we're doing today with the videos. I'm just fascinated. I mean, what would I do without my fax machine? I mean, I just have so much fun now. I don't even have to leave my room to sit there and feed stuff all over the country, just like that. But understand that because of that telephone number, the government can identify you just like that too. How long does it take for you to call California? About a split second. Can you be identified by your telephone number? Gee, had you ever thought about it? Is that community? Does that come right into your home? This is really what we're talking about in the technology. Remember that the private industry councils that have been developed under the Department of Labor will be the employers accessing these electronic portfolios. So there are certain key things that we have to ask. Well, gee, what's going to be on my child's permanent record that can be transferred out of the district with or without my knowledge? So this is a key. Okay, we're moving to this new paradigm. What's going to be on the report card? What's going to be on the electronic portfolio? Well, let's take a look. You have to have workplace competency skills. You have to have resources, and you have to have interpersonal skills and know how to use information. And you notice over here you have proficiency levels. Look down here, down at SCAN's personal qualities. You have to have responsibility and self-esteem and sociability and self-management and honesty and integrity. Well, and gee, poor Jane is 19, and she's still in school. I just don't really understand how they have these number of ratings and these personal qualities. And I'm going to give you now, and these are in Talking Papers, one of the manuals that I have devised to help parents understand the system by giving you all the documents. Because, you know, after I've been someplace speaking, I'd get the 2 million phone calls saying, will you send me the scans? Will you send me this? So I've devised a manual that will help you. It's called Talking Papers, and it's me speaking on the audio that will take you through many of the documents that I'm showing today and explains the dot-to-dot process of why things are happening the way they are. So let's take integrity and honesty, and I'm going to go through the 5 magic questions with you. Number 1, if we're going to have integrity and honesty as one of our outcomes, the first question that I can guarantee that you can win any debate on vague and subjective outcomes is number 1. How do you measure that? How are you going to measure my child's integrity and honesty? What does that mean? Are you measuring morals? Are you going to have to psychoanalyze my child in order to measure his moral integrity? How do you measure integrity? The second question, how do you score it? How do you score my child's integrity and honesty? What is the standard for integrity? Can you opt out of this outcome? How much is too much and how much is not enough in order to graduate? This is going to be on your child's profile. How do you score integrity? The third question, who decided? Who decided what that standard was going to be? Was it my local school board or was it the state? Who decided what it was going to be? Number 4, what are you going to use on my child in order to move him from here to here? How will my child be remediated? What are you going to do to my child's moral and ethical judgment to get him over here in order to graduate? And the 5th question is, what if parent and state disagree? Who has the ultimate authority over the child, the parent or the state? I can guarantee you right now that it will be the parents who win, because I will not allow this to happen, because the parents always have the sole responsibility over their children first. That goes back to your original basic principle, parents' rights. You know the first question they throw out at you? Hey, there are some kids out there that need an attitude adjustment, and all little parents just don't care, right? That's what you always get. But when you go back to the basic principle and you say, are you telling me my neighbor doesn't have just as many rights as I do just because I know what I'm doing? Oh, I didn't say that, Mrs. Hogue. What did you say? I'm saying that every parent has a right to say yes or no, no matter who they are. If a parent signs off on that child, then you have a right to step in. By rights and by law, you must get my permission. This is why the partnership letter will be a legal, basic groundwork, framework that you can work from. So, you know, these are some of the key issues and questions. Now you're going to say, well, hey, I teach 5th grade, and I go to those teacher trainings, and I hate them, and I'm going to go into my classroom, and I'm going to shut the door, and they're not going to tell me what to do. Right? Right? Is that TQM? Gee, I don't think so. So what happens when we go to waste management elimination, when teachers are going to be told they must? And once their children are being tested on one certain outcome and we can cross-reference or integrate the information, and they know Mrs. Smith did not teach the outcomes when all 30 of her children did not meet them. So we can target and troubleshoot Mrs. Smith, or we can troubleshoot Johnny if we have all the information on the children, all the information on the curriculum and all the information on the teachers so that we can cross-reference all of the above. Input, right? We've got to monitor input in order to control output. So Mrs. Smith, yes, you used to go in your room and close the door and do whatever you wanted, but if we're going to use assessments and curriculum-based assessments to monitor what you will do in the classroom, you will change or you will be gone. And that's TQM. Here's the teacher training. This is the NASDAQ Outcome-Based Teacher Education Certification draft for teachers. That's dated June of 1993. They are moving, of course, to this is the National Association of State Directors for Teacher Education Certification, and they are moving definitely to a assumption of outcome-based education. And I want to come down here and just read directly that the NASDAQ Outcome-Based Teacher Education Standards were developed at the transformational level of Spady and Marshall's hierarchy of outcomes. Transformational, do we remember transformational? What children will know, what they will do, and what they will be like. This means that curriculum content is no longer the grounding and defining element of outcomes. We are moving to role performance. Eventually, all teachers under a total quality system and Workforce 2000 will be forced to comply. Am I afraid for our teachers as well as our children? You better believe it, because the good teachers will be forced out of the system. We'll integrate the total quality movement into national standards for teacher education and certification. The specific outcomes are very important because it goes along with what I said originally. We must have alignment. We have the America 2000, of where it started, and of course funded by Carnegie Foundation and funding by the federal government. We will have the curriculum that are aligned with the national goals. We will have instruction that are aligned to the national goals. We will have assessment for systematic feedback to be sure that you are meeting the national goals. We will have school improvement in total quality management. We will be sure to have support services in order to determine and to identify all at-risk children who are not meeting outcomes. We have to have community service to live harmoniously together. Don't you just love it? We have to have homeschool and community collaboratives. Gee, they need the partnerships, and I wonder why. We have to have the technology in order to monitor. First, we're going to set up the IEP. Then we have the standardization of teaching, and then we have managing the data. The three most important things in technology in a computer-assisted instruction. And we have to have resource management and the workplace know-how that was developed from the scans. Is this related to workplace competencies? It definitely is. And when you get your toolkit, the most important thing for you to get today, the first thing, is the toolkit. The Community Action Toolkit is wonderful. On page 7, it says, Stage 1. And this is how to get your community to come to action, and it says certain things, but it says specifically, most people remain largely unaware of the socioeconomic conditions driving the movement toward education goals and standards. They may not yet recognize that there is no, quote, going back to basics, end of quote, in education. We must go forward in a new basics, quote, unquote, required for success in today's increasingly complex and competitive global economy. And then it says, the best way to avoid resistance is to ensure that everybody is involved in the process and that all of your concerns have been heard. Partnerships, collaboratives, they need for you to agree. And this is one of the very big atomic bombs that you can drop with your letter saying you do not accept a partnership that would give up the sole responsibility for your child. So how is this going to be done?